Blog Talk Radio. And so it came to pass that the first to last was the first to die. And from this ash of triple stage darkness emerged the crack rock.
I do that crank rock, I make that hip hop, I make your jaw drop, break the bank and make it high. You just a has-been, who is now a has-not. You cannot stop it, you might as well jock this while I do it.
I do it cause you want it, you want it cause I do it. I think it when I speak it, get wet by the way I freak it. What search is coming on, I feel it's locked it down. Bringing that crank rock, heaven from Brooklyn town.
Make sure when you come and bring a tip to brand, ready to put it in my hand. Put it up and they plan on how to make another 100, man. Never understand. Indeed, if I was a better man, I'd let you know about the white man master plan. But my people freaking, man. Super coke and tweaking, man. Sipping perp in the church while they pastor steady preaching, man. They rhymes be bland with no flavor in them, damn. And I'm down for the plan for the black man walking. So however, my raps are too clever. Blacker than black leather, whatever. The weather, I'm better than ever. Remember the time when we cared about our rhymes. Here to remind us of what we left behind. To this crank, I do that crank rock. I make that hip hop. I make your jaw drop. Break the bank and make it high. You just a has-been, who is now a has-not. You cannot stop it. You might as well jock this while I do it.
I do it cause you want it. You want it cause I do it. I think it when I speak it. Get wet by the way I freak it. What search is coming on, I feel it's locked it down. Bringing that crank rock, heaven from Brooklyn town.
What you need, what you want, how much you gon' spend, how much you gon' flown, how much you gon' keep, how much you gon' tell me to speak this goes with my underdog. Nigga, she ain't done nothing I ain't seen before. If you took away the body with the beauty show, I don't think so, so show the dough. I don't got time for dimes with no glow. Don't got time for rhymes with no soul. Finding like a lonely one-woman show. Scared to be a hoe when your daddy a pimp. Always had a good year without the blimp. Give you Michael Limp with your rhyme and splint. Coming from the east, but my name ain't Clint. You want something new, then you found it. Cause you feel good when you round it. Cause I do it.
I do it cause you want it. You want it cause I do it. I think it when I speak it. Get wet by the way I freak it. What search is coming on, I feel it's locked it down. Bringing that crank rock, heaven from Brooklyn town.
I do that crank rock. I make that hip hop. I make your jaw drop. Break the bank and make it high. You just a has-been, who is now a has-not. You cannot stop it. You might as well jock this while I do it.
Peace and blessings, everybody. Good evening. This is Selena, the Empress of 10,000 Years, and I'm actually starting the show tonight. Of course, Aseer, Brother Aseer should be here any minute now. He had not really a workshop, but almost like a family gathering where a lot of people were going to come and, just exchanging good food and good vibes. So funny enough, I had a feeling that it would go a little late, and I said, you know what, somebody needs to stay home to make sure, just in case we don't get a ride or something happens, we can start the show today. And I'm thankful that I stayed home because I'm here and all of you guys are here. So I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Monday, a happy Memorial Day, whatever the hell that means. Memorial Day, in retrospect, is a day where all the quote-unquote fallen soldiers, and in thinking about today, to share a little bit of our pillow talk. I like that term. Give thanks, Asia, for reminding me of the power of pillow talk. I sometimes forget that what other people, don't really, like just hearing the term pillow talk, I was going to say what other people don't have, I sometimes don't realize is of value. And she said to me the other day, she was like, shout out to Khalik and Asia. They were really great in holding me down this past weekend. It's been a really an amazing journey. And what's amazing more than anything is not having to have relationships with people that you see physically, and then knowing based on the work that people are doing where their heart chakra is based. And, I've never spoken to see Asia or Brother Khalid except for maybe one time prior to this Friday. And I knew that I could call them based on what had taken place astrologically. And it's really nice when you have certain downloads and it's like, okay, during this time, you're not alone. There's this whole myth that Aseer and I left New York out of, running away, or I guess when people hear about people moving, they either assume moving out of New York, they either assume that A, it's gotten rough and heavy, or B, they're running from something. When really, to be quite honest, after living in New York for my whole life, I always wondered why I always find myself going back to New York or having returned to New York. And since having Amor, it's been a great journey at breaking old cycles. He's really brought a lot of newness into our lives, and I'm so thankful I got out of the belly of the beast. I didn't even know how I was affected by New York until I was able to leave. And it literally came down to like, wow, we're either going to spend another winter here and move 12th time in the last 10 years, or we're going to really move somewhere that, God forbid, we have to move again. We're going to be in an environment that's conducive to our spirits. And it was great. I'm so thankful we got out. And then in leaving, you realize how many relationships you break and how many relationships are actually tested. So sometimes change and addressing any issue within yourself can be a great way to break through almost pinnacles that sometimes we set up on our own path here on this journey. We're often given circumstances by our families that end up becoming our baggage and our luggage. But it really depends on you to say to yourself, wow, this book bag has been great carrying, but did I even buy this bag? Where did I get this at? And literally, it's nice to take recognizance or to take check as to what is yours and what you've picked up along the road. And relationships can be like bags that are given to you that you don't necessarily remember choosing, but you do. We make choices to attract all energy at all times in our life. And you can break cycles. You can change, just as you can change outfits and you can change what you want to eat in the morning. You could say, okay, this morning granola was great, but tomorrow I want to do oats. It's the same thing for life. If you aren't comfortable in the environment in which you are, you can change. You can break out of it. And it's hard. New York is very, very funny because it's a love-hate relationship. It's a place that I really can't think of myself having been me without it. But at the same token, I realize that it doesn't define me, and that was one part of a journey that if I don't, continue to open doors along the path, what is it that I'm going to discover? So upon leaving New York, what was really great is we broke a lot of relationships that we didn't even really know were tied into us. And it's sometimes good to get an overhead or a bird's eye view as to what's taking place in your life. And the only way sometimes you can do that is by literally pressing the pause button and stepping out of your comfort zone, out of whatever cycle you're comfortable being in. And I don't think that I would have known and would have had so much clarity now if we did not break certain habits and rituals that we were becoming a part of by association, by group, hangout spots, by being in certain vortexes, meaning like certain spots in, New York. It's like you attract people because you're there. And what's great is by us not being there, we're able to see what else we're able to attract and what we repelled. And can you take the last bite, please, some more? You don't want it? Okay. And it's been great. It's a great check and balance system, not only for yourself, but for, all the people in your life. Can relationships based on not being seen every day, can time actually hinder or allow a relationship to grow and prosper? And, I'm really thankful because I didn't know how I was connected to certain things as much as I can see it now, because we were able to just give ourselves a break and a space or a way out. And I mentioned Khalik and C. Asia because, people will often put nomenclatures or make you feel like that you have no friends because you don't, put yourself in the middle of chaos. It's like going to a mall. Malls can be really draining and toxic, and sometimes people go just to people watch and to really, just be stimulated. And sometimes what I've noticed is that for me, I do really well when I have one-on-one associations with people and there isn't a flux of energy around that can confuse sometimes or make you feel just like, one member of something that's so great that where is my voice? Who am I in this? And what I do want to say is that I'm really thankful that I called them because, you don't have to talk to people every day in order to have a relationship with them. We are such alchemical and spiritual beings that you don't. And, it's really funny when you can feel based on the hype oftentimes. Sometimes I can just sit on the beach and literally almost hear all of the chatter and clamor. And I'm very clear now as to know if this is my voice or if I'm actually picking up on a frequency. And, I can pick up on it and turn it off. And I've been very conscious about turning it off and keeping it off. And what's great is when you turn it on, you're very, you almost get a flood sometimes. And, I always know that people have assumed or sometimes feel that, if you're not around people that you're not social or you're an isolated individual or, you're someone who doesn't like people, when actually the opposite can be a reality. The opposite is actually my reality in terms that I really enjoy being a part of certain social groups and circles, but to what cost and to what expense? And, just you can have the milk without the straw. It's some coconut milk. Just have it straight without the straw. You don't need a straw. Thank you, honey. You don't have to feel or be a part of the major group in order to have a voice. And what's great is that I called. It's like when one door closes, another door opens. That's what I'm trying to express. I'm washing dishes, picking up some fish that fell on the floor. I just poured some coconut milk, and it smells a little weird, so I'm going to give them the hemp milk. And I'm doing all this and talking. And this is why I don't host the show, because you have to be very clear about what you're saying. And these are the moments that I'm like, wow, this is not easy, and I don't know how people do this effortlessly. And then I go, oh, wow. It's because they have help. They have people to help them. And I'm just very thankful. Can you guys hear me in the chat? Can you hear me? Am I on? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? You see how I have to type and talk? I am definitely not a seer. I don't even think people can hear me, Yes, we can. Yes, I hear you. Thank you, Miriam. Thanks for Man Called Sunday. Peace, Nilo. What's up? So basically, pillow talk. Okay. Our pillow talk has been very interesting lately. Thank you, Cieza, for reminding me of the value of pillow talk and the fact that people that feel on the outside of that can oftentimes literally feel on the outside of that. I say. And she's like, what? Are you kidding me? Pillow talk, the power of pillow talk, y'all be in there. I say, yeah, well, who else am I going to talk to about life issues and things that we see on TV other than the person that's in my family and my house? To be a seer. Look at Seer on the other line. Let me see if he can call in. Hold on. Yep, that was a Seer. I don't know what that means, but I guess we're seeing soon. Sometimes I think it means he's going to open the door in 2 minutes because he usually does that, but not tonight. Anyway, the power of pillow talk. We were talking about myths and facts and things that right now specifically based on everything that's going on astrologically in the world and everything that's taking place alchemically, as above, so below. If there's major shifts and changes, and this entire cycle that we're in right now is about bringing things that have been Neptunian actually to the surface, bringing things that like I've been saying, this is a time for all actors to literally get checked on their roles and to almost, in a sense, have to reevaluate what costumes they're wearing when. Are you Hamlet today, or are you Macbeth? Are we going to play Iago, the jaded homosexual lover, or are we going to be the heroine, advocate, revenge, connoisseur? What are you, and how consistent is that in your real life? And right now, because all these myths are actually coming to surface, things that we thought was one way are actually another, is right now taking place. So we've been thinking about it this week, and I've been like, wow, all of this is happening in society and with people, and, communication is getting clearer. What has been taking place in the world that has been like a major myth or something that I've always believed in, or something that was told to me, like a story that ends up being told to you time and time again, and based on how many people know the story and how many people share the story is how much you believe in it. And literally, we were talking about aliens and this whole, thing going on right now with this alien invasion and what's been taking place in the world. You have all these, tornadoes and just hurricanes and stuff going across the Midwest especially, and all of these weather changes and all of this hype taking place. It literally, Aseer was like, well, right now, it's funny that we've been thinking and talking about, this whole alien thing. Are aliens real? We've been talking about this whole cover-up in terms of America being very aware that something is happening and something is coming. And when this is coming, what usually happens? Do people get distracted from what's coming, or is there some type of is there something, like let's say there's story A taking place. So I'm telling you a story, and then all of a sudden a whole nother version of the story is being told to you. Are we to think about the original story or remix it? Am I making sense? No, I'm not, because I'm listening to myself out loud. Basically, I was like, this whole reptilian shit, let me break it down even more to exactly how I got into it, because I can't even try to explain what I'm thinking about, because it's this big. This whole reptilian agenda, David Icke, all of these hype men, people that create fear, people that have become really famous in trying to dispel certain occult myths and also bring certain things to light. Alien shit. Are aliens real? This whole thing of, you definitely have the Pleiadians and all the different star systems. Aliens, the green morphed face with the two eyes and the mouth, how many times people have seen them. All of the recordings throughout time, especially since the early 60s, of alien visitations and of people seeing alien hovercrafts and all this shit. So Aseer and I were like, what if that whole shit is a fucking lie? Like, that story is almost told so textbook perfect. We saw a light in the sky or was sleeping at night, and then all of a sudden, I was, aliens invaded me, or I was whisked away by some alien, spaceship Hubble. And I hear you, I'm more a good boy for doing it. And these aliens took me into this space, and, all of a sudden they were probing my body, and the machines were tapping into my eyes. And you know the story? Like, I've heard it mad times. I've been like, oh, shit, this shit is sick, son. Like, how can, oh, my God, it's definitely got to be real. Everybody's having the same story. It's, coinciding across millions of miles, wherever you are. This is the way it's happened. And then Aseer and I were, literally, I was like, but how is it that everybody has had the same type of abduction alien story? He said, that's the shit. They fucking haven't, Selena. What if there's this major hoax within the government that took place, and he'll back it up with facts, but this is basically the story right now. What if everybody that has been, quote-unquote, abducted actually went through some type of ritualistic programming, and that ritualistic programming was so deep and indoctrinated that it became the norm for allowing, or for literally not only creating dissociative identity disorders, but also creating having multiple personalities. Not just DID, but I'm talking like you are literally a psychopath and you have more than not only different alters, but different programs that open up those alters. So we were thinking about it, and we literally were talking this past week, and it was like, yo, what if all the stories and all the David Icks, because all of the people that have initiated and really solidified these myths were, either from London, Europe, someplace that was not American-based. And then he's like, well, no, there's a lot of Americans that have, co-signed the same story and the same abduction, hype. But within that, what if these people, millions of people, have been ritualistically abused and programmed to believe that aliens exist because this is what has to happen? Everyone, in a sense, has to put their belief into a false god, into a false demon, into a false archetype in order for the real demon to do its work. We were like, yo, the devil always plays tricks on you, and it's never quite what you think it is. So when you think he's coming in one light, he's actually dispersed it, and it's coming not only in that one light, but it's also gain as many people that he can on the journey to recruit and allow whatever workings and whatever demonocracy he wants to take place to happen with its most potency. So we're like, yo, so what if all of these people that have had these abduction sightings and these abduction visions, when you have more than 10,000 people that believe in something, it can become factual, and that can become the source of where you get your information from. So, and then when you do that, it's like, okay, we've created this reality because we believe that these aliens exist. They come like this. They invade like this. They, dominate like this. But while we're all giving that credit, the real demon is like, ha, 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 I got these folks to believe that green aliens are the only thing that is coming in. We're going to fuck your head up and do it in more than one way. So we started really talking about it, and I was like, yo, that makes a lot of sense because I always wondered where the spirituality and where, like, God has been in all of this alien sighting shit. It's like if everything is co-created and exists under one sun, and if we are all alchemically connected, then where is this alien force frequency that is so outside the realm of the Creator, out of God? Because when you talk or when there's speaking of aliens or any type of inhabitation, it's very rare that we think of it in any type of religious or any type of spiritual awakening, or like, okay, well, this is because God wants us to be, and it's all under his divine plan. So we started thinking about it, and it was like, no, the demon and demons, what's happening now, he specifically, we were talking, he said to me last night, he was like, nah, Selena, that's not what it is. Like, the more I have been researching, the last, 3 months especially, the more I'm realizing that this whole demon energy is actually much deeper than we think it to be. But in it being deeper, it's actually really easy to address. The focus and the energy that we have given to the alien reptilian agenda has had to be created in order for our attention to be taken away from the real demons doing work here in this dimensional frequency. Yeah, that can be true. All that alien shit could be true. But if we are constantly thinking of alien inhabitation, then we are thinking of it outside of this American soil. We're thinking of it as something that is coming to us from some other far-out place. But what if that is not the case at all? He said to me specifically last night, this is just a theory. He said, but what if that story had to be so ingrained over the last 35 years to distract, let's say 55 years, because it has been that long, to distract the real demon workings here. The more in which you separate and think of it being something outside of yourself, the more you are unable to see how these demon hosts have inhabited and are working in the minds and the people that we're around every day. And that's huge because it taps into something really big that we just kind of chipped on, and that's been our major pillow talk What do you need, honey? Where's the soccer ball? I don't know where you put your soccer ball anymore. You can check under the couch. It might be under the couch. Let me come and help you. And it just got me to thinking about Jesus Christ. I know it's a big step, but I really was like, yeah, also Jesus. Why do I said, I've been really studying myself with Christianity and really thinking about just the religion, the Bible, why there's still power to me in the Bible, in the Word, even when, all hell breaks loose and I do have a foundation and think about other sacred texts. There's still a certain resonance with this word Jesus. And it feels like you're absolutely right. Even when, people are doing exorcisms and when there's other real deep occult shit taking place, a lot of people go right back to this term and this name, Jesus. So we really started thinking about Jesus and the power of that. And it feels like, to be real, I don't even know what about that name holds so much power, but it's definitely a dispenser and a dispeller, and it definitely has been kind of, walked away or try to be put to the back in this new conscious, the black man is God, not just that we're archetypes and that we represent the temple and the body of Christ and God in its entirety, but we are the physical, the physical being here on planet Earth. And I've met a lot of black men that aren't God. So I ask myself, if that is the case, then when is a choice made to separate yourself or to denounce yourself from the kingdom of heaven? It has to be something that you are aware that you're doing. When you say, I'm going to be evil like this, or good boy, you founded a Moor, good boy. When you say to yourself, nah, like all bets is off. This is how I'm living my life because this shit is really where it's at. This material realm, all I got to do is sacrifice a couple of people, drink a little bit of X, Y, and Z-O, do a little bit of A, B, and C-O, and you use the bathroom? You may pop up? Okay, I'm going to get the wipe. Daggone it, I smoke a lot of weed. Daggone it, I smoke a lot of trees. I know what I was saying, but I had a point. The point was Jesus. I was talking about Jesus. God damn. And I just started smoking again. What you call it? Oh, yes. The power, not only the power of Jesus, but knowing that you've made a choice to join teams with Lucifer. Like to say, okay, this God shit, fuck all of that. I am God, and I'm making the decision from here on in. The shit in the past ain't work. Like, if we come from God, then we have to have a conversation and say, look, Jesus, I was rocking with you for a while, but now this pussy, this money, these clothes, these rewards here are so much greater than what I'm going to get from you in the now. And yeah, you promised a lot of shit in the hereafter, and I could believe in all of that, but heaven is on earth, and fuck the bullshit. When you do that, when you actually make an alliance with, clothes or money or pussy or anything that takes you outside of just feeling like you are a godlike being, like somebody that can be forgiven, that can love still, that, can do wrong, but still at the end of the day, if we take responsibility for the things we do and we don't do them again, like the basic shit, it's like when the basics go out the window, sure, honey, hold on. When the basics go out the window, it's like, how did that happen? There was a time that you were a good boy, or there was a time that this woman must have known not to, kill her daughter, Kaylee. I think that was little girl. I was just watching CNN today, and there's this woman that's on trial. I think it's Casey. Amor, just chill out. I'm on the phone. I'm trying to host this show. Can you chill out for me? Can you please calm down? Say yes, Mama. Thank you. Let me wipe your doo-doos, okay? I got to do a couple things tonight. Hold on a second. Like some women just straight kill their kids and don't tell people for 3 months. Like, during those 3 months that you were going to the mall, sister, and your daughter was, your daughter, I'm sorry, Amor is really not used to me being on the phone. So anytime I'm on the phone, he's just like, Mama, Mama. And it's a lot. It's really whack, but I'm going to get through it. Amor, stop it, please. Please let me just do it 5 more minutes. Okay? Thank you. You know, there has to be a moment where you say, all bets is off. I'm going to be this evil bitch. There's more rewards in it, and I like it. So if you do that, it's like, son, okay, so you join forces with Darth Vader instead of Anakin becomes Darth Vader. It's like when he became that, he became it almost as a last resort. But he did have a fucking choice. He could have been on some, I don't have to kill all the children in the village that my mom came from. I don't have to kill everybody. But he was so enraged and incensed with anger that he was like, you know what? Everything is getting cleared right now. I am literally, and you saw the tick, tick, boom. You saw when he was like, okay, everything is cool, and then all of a sudden he was like, I've got to revenge my mother's death. And then, like, he just turned 360, shot up everybody in the village, and was like, fuck it. Now there's no turning back. Right there when you say F it, there's no turning back. That is when you open yourself up for extreme demon inhabitation. And that is when you give whatever demon you are almost hecetting. When you're doing evil like that, I think that you team up and something literally happens where an opening takes place within your DNA scope, and it's like you give way for this energy to live and to grow and to survive. If Anakin was able to slow down and say, yo, I just really messed up and, I played myself beyond repair. I feel like there's no turning back. When you realize the whack shit that you do in someone's life and you take responsibility for it, that's the moment where you not only test yourself on some am I of God or am I of the devil, but you have a choice. And I say this all the time because when people just go, off the deep end, it's like, oh, gosh, we feel so bad for them and, I hope that this. No, you went off the deep end because you did not slow down when you could have made a choice and said, hey, I don't have to do this. I can actually be in control of my body, my temple, my mind, and not do the thing that feels really good to do. And that reptilian part of the brain that exists in all of us can be dormant or can be active based on what program you're putting in it. Amor, I cannot play the video right now, okay, honey? You're going to have to wait tonight. I can't play Hustle Hard right now, okay? I know you want to watch Heru, but the nursery rhymes are literally, it's difficult to do. Look at you. You got Hustle Hard anyway. You're illmatic. I just gave my son the remote, find it yourself. There's 35 programs. And he just pressed play, and Hustle Hard is right here. I cannot even believe that he likes this. If you watched him, you'd be like, what? But it feels like these are nursery rhymes. This is why he knows the lyrics to Hustle Hard, and he makes up his own words, but it's really cute because he moves his body, he moves his arms, and I said this is exactly why you have to be careful about not only what our children watch, but who they emulate. If they are emulating people that they don't even know on television, and you have them around people every day that you don't know when the alarm is off, what uniform they're going to turn into. Is Clark Kent going to become Superman, or is he going to become something else? And what we're around, what we are ingesting in our surroundings, in the relationships, in the company we keep, literally dictate our temper and how we react to shit. And I realized in coming here and being in Miami that, I was very much out of my normal state of being in New York, but I adapted to that way of life. I became really, not even hard, but I became very disconnected from the fact that I didn't see the sun every day, from the fact that it was cold and my knees were hurting to walk in the subway. It was like, okay, whatever, this is what everybody goes through, and you get used to the pain. But it is not normal to live in pain. It is not normal to have abusive situations in your life. It is not normal to be attracted to abuse. And when I am around people and I realize, like, wow, you keep going back to the same guy that you know don't bring you no food, you know ain't going to cut you a half of your burger, you know is going to, you know, maybe be good to you on Monday and Tuesday, but from Wednesday through Sunday, you know, he's putting you in literally in an emotional dog cage. So, you know, some people are like, nah, them 2 days are worth it. I'll sit in my emotional dog cage because what happens on Saturday and Sunday and the dick that he gives me, it's worth it. Okay, great. So then that's the level of maturity and evolution that you are at now. It's not to say people can't become more, but I always say some bitches like being slaves. Some bitches like being bottom bitches, that they just keep serving, keep showing, keep, you know, putting in the work to show and prove to the man, look at how hard I can work for you. But some men just want a good workhorse. Some men just want to see, damn, can I get this pretty bitch to toil and soil for me again? And when they can, it's almost like you lose respect, but at the same time, you really like this slave that you have. You really like this little golem because they do everything for you, and you don't need to give them much in order to get it done. That is like classic A abuse. And I'm very aware of it, not only based on how I was raised in my family, but, you know, given a lot of love from the immediates in my family, but then the extended members of my family really, like the men especially, my sister can testify for this, were just very good at making women feel as though they have to jump through these hoops. Like, oh, that's great, you cooked 3 turkeys and 2 hams and made all this wonderful. Well, can you wash the dishes? It's like, yeah, I can wash the dishes. I can do all of that. But my hands are shaking, my feet are swollen, and I'm tired. Can you help me out? Yo, you ain't a real woman unless you do all of it. A word? Well, then I'm not a real woman. And that is when you have to make a decision for yourself. What am I willing to take? How much abuse am I going to shovel down my throat before I can equate it to love, you know? And some people are here to literally repeat the same cycle, to not get better, to not grow, to be difficult, to not want to love. And the people that don't want what you want, you should allow them to have what they want to have. And in letting people go and letting the idea of what you thought love was going to be through this person who gives it to you in abuse, maybe by forsaking your own sanity, you're going to get that reward. But that waiting period, those moments in the waiting room can seem really, really long. It could seem like forever. So some people just go, shit, like I'm already 40, I'm already 35, I'm already 20. You know, you give yourself these little pinnacles and these tests. At 20, I'm going to have a steady so-and-so. And it's like people say, no, we don't really do that. But I'm meeting people that are really on a plan that I'm like, well, who wrote that out for you? And it's like, oh, shit, I didn't even really realize that I was on some plan. But, yeah, I guess I am. And it's just to say that you don't, you know, if you're used to abusive type of love, if you find yourself having to cook every night, to not feel appreciated, to having to, I'm trying to do so much, my God, Aseer, to work in toilet. If you're doing so much, it's like, who am I? What's my name? Do I have clothes? Hi, what do I like eating? You literally, if you don't know, no more. We're going to go take a bath right now. Come on. If you don't know, if you forget your name during the week, you really need to slow down and think about who you're around. It's the people in your environment. It could be your mom that you live with every day. It could be your grandmother who you bring food to, who throws the bowl in your face and says, you ain't worth shit, nigga. You just like your daddy. You know, these are horrible examples, but what I'm getting at is if you are not happy, if you feel drained, if something is off in your life, the first thing that I want you to do is really think about what you're eating, what you're drinking, and who you're around. And who you're around is what you're eating and drinking. Because if the people that you're around are not encouraging or only give you love and light when you're doing shit for them, then know that you have to put something in this vessel in order to get nothing. And if you're getting nothing and you're getting nothing, then reevaluate what and why. Some women I could look at and be like, oh, wow, you're so much better than this. But if they don't feel that they're better than that, then let them be with whoever that they want to be with, I've had so many friendships that, I've learned as I'm getting older now, shout out to Candace, getting older, that, my girlfriends, even when they go through shit that they know they shouldn't be doing, they don't want me to put the friendship on pause. Like, I literally had to, with one of my real close girlfriends, I said to myself, like, wow, you really, you're a really good person, and this man has done a number of things, physically, emotionally, to you, and, she's like, yeah, but, this is where I'm at right now, and I'm a loyalist, and I'm going to ride it out to the end. When I know it's hot, I'm sorry, honey, let me make it a little warmer. When I'm seeing her do that, it just hurt me. It hurt me to the core. It was like, I can't stand around and come here every day and watch and witness what you're allowing yourself to go through. And with her specifically, it taught me some women need to go through shit like that in order to realize, hey, this is what I like. Like, I like being in love with someone that makes me work for affection. I like being around somebody that doesn't give me compliments. And then I'm like, okay, well, if you like that, then I'm cool with it too. I like the guy that throws you through glass windows, and, he's great. And then once you say that to them, it's like, wow, am I really that sweet? Like, am I doing that? Yes, you are. You are doing that and more. Yay, Aseer is home! You guys don't have to be bored about my banter anymore, but basically you get it. It's like, I really want women to know that they're better than the circumstances that they just find themselves in. You don't just jump on a dick and find yourself getting fucked by somebody. You make a conscious decision to say, am I going to be with this person or am I not? And it's not easy. It's not easy. Sometimes loneliness, sometimes just the fact that you are programmed to have somebody penetrate you, to feel stimulated, can be the only thing that you know as action, as activity, as whatever. But right now is when those people that even want a way out are attracting the archetype or the example of a couple that they would like to be like. And that's what I'm realizing. Just in my chart and in Aseer's chart alone, take a step back, look at it from a big point of view again, years later, and I go, wow, there's so much transit in our shit that we literally pass through people's lives to either teach them about something, to help them, or we're supposed to get a lesson from them. But that doesn't mean that you're supposed to hold on to the person that you get the lesson from. You're just supposed to get the lesson and keep it moving. And some people want to hold on to the person, and they don't realize, nah, this motherfucker just came through these last 3 months to teach you the lesson. Can you let them go? Because once you get the lesson and you still hold on to the person because you want to masturbate with their energy, that's when it becomes a fucked situation. That's when you're like, wow, this guy was great, and then all of a sudden it turned wiki-wacky. But when it turned wiki-wacky is when you need to start setting up boundaries for yourself, because people change and energy grows, and you do become different. I know a lot of people that were extreme godlike, had such potential, and just became just niggas that use bitches, like just straight up. But that comes from their mothers not giving them creative outsources, not giving them encouragement to say, look, little handsome black boy, the women that you attract in your life are going to want you to take care of them, and the men that you attract are going to want you to take care of them. So what are you going to do? It's very rare that our parents teach us about Venus, about the power of beauty, about the power of having certain, face features and shit. We're so caught up in, oh, he got nice Indian hair, and I still hear it and see the shit that it's an anomaly when you see, like, wow, beauty in ways that you weren't programmed for it to exist. And when people give shouts to this fam that have been reminding me of shit, and also to being out here and me being humble enough to go, wow, I don't think of myself as anything but, like, oh, wow, a black family, because I'm a black woman and I like black people and I've been raised around black folks. But being around people that have not seen a happy black family, as being around people now, they're like, yo, I have never seen, it is amazing, it's so, and I'm like, wow, we really are becoming like endangered species. There aren't happy people together. You only see black people together. That's not true. It's becoming more common to see black people together that share the same pain. It's like the pain magnets attract each other, and they stick together because it's like, fuck it, we're both miserable, let's be miserable together. You got to be like the partner. If you smoke fucking coke and your partner only smokes herbs, guarantee you won't be smoking woolies in about 6 fucking months because the relationship is not going to last. If you believe in God and your partner's like, yo, fuck that God shit, you're like, straight up, I am God, and back in that all day, that do as thou wilt shit, it's a very thin line, nigga. You could, like, you know, be on the slippery slope and be like, whoop, whoop, oh, shit, I'm in. Yes, Candyman, you said his name enough, and now the motherfucker feel like you want to exist with him. So you're now family. And rock to the end. Hold on. This is Aseer. I'm done. Have a good night. I got to go bathe my kid. I love everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Peace. I'm so tired and moist and so nice. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing? Sorry I was late. I'm tardy on you tonight, but I had to, I was doing a workshop at, down here at a spot. Big up to Yahuda, big up to Banana, big up to, everybody. Yeah, there's like a family gathering workshop in which community down here gets together. There's a community down here functions under the auspices of a group called the Orion's Belt. Big out to them. And they have stuff out here to really, really good for people, man. And really good people. So they invited me out to do a speaking thing. And it was such family vibe that I had to, I don't know how long with it I could be, but tried to keep it to a minimum. So I definitely want to thank everybody who participated. Thank you to the Empress and more for holding down the show and holding us down, making sure everything flows as it's supposed to go. Definitely give shouts and thanks and praise to everybody who gave us.
That's on the alien invasion thing, how we all think, I heard you talking about Phil talking, how we all think that this whole reptilian agenda thing has been thwarted. They want to focus specifically on reptilians, and the programming has been that through ritualistic trauma and abuse, they funnel this whole reptilian shit in the minds of the people so that people go out there all telling the same stories. 25 years later, we put our hope in some big demon, when really the real demon has split itself up into 65 different fucking heads.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what she's saying, and to show and prove how this can be true, is the fact that traditionally there's usually a certain section of stories that go along with so-called alien abduction. And I always thought it was something crazy with the fact that the aliens only chose to abduct Caucasian people. And to this day, you don't really meet that many people who are black, who have been Caucasian, if you meet any at all. So this shows me that this is a racially gendered phenomenon that is functioning from the perspective of the opposite agenda, meaning if we have to remember that Satan's number one power is the fact that he can look and be like anybody who you like and you want to be. So if the whole thing is set up for you to be in a certain situation, that's a bitter. And essentially, they've created this thing online. To tell you the truth, I was watching one of David Icke's things about the Arizona Wilder chick. And this Arizona Wilder chick, who was on on the David Icke show, was basically going in on how the ritual went down. And one of the key points in the ritual was the fact that she kept referring to or mentioning the fact that when he asked her, how you found out about this shit, she said that she was made to know the history of the so-called Illuminati. So what that says to me is that as she was made to think that, made is another way of saying programmed. So she was programmed basically to kick this agenda based upon what she was telling her about the reptilian. So when you watch the tape, it's called Reverend Confessions of a Reverend Mother Goddess or something like that. And in the process of the story, she winds up talking she winds up talking, and she winds up basically admitting that in the ritual, the so-called dragons, who are the so-called reptilians, basically all come in human form. And then right when the ritual gets at a crescendo, as they're speaking in the incantations or whatever, and they're stirring the blood in the goblet, the same pimp cup goblets that you see Snoop Dogg and these people be having in their videos, when he's stirring and all of that, they basically, as the ritual starts to heighten, they almost can't control themselves because they're so frenzied and orgiastically caught up in the ritual that they just basically shift out, become reptilians, and then jump in and start eating people. Now, when you hear her talk, she says, well, you know, in the situations like that, they're so ravenous or whatever, they can't even wait. So they just rip off the robes and shape shift or whatever, and then just eat the people, and then that's basically, and then what happens is, she said that they subordinate themselves, fall to the ground, and go to and seek wisdom from the demons, okay? Because if they seek the demonic wisdom to teach them and tell them what they need to do to secure themselves in power for the next however many hundreds of years. So what that says to me in that sentence is that she believes, or at least is put out there, that the so-called reptilians are not as strong then as the daemons or the demons, meaning that the demonic energy is the energy that the people are involving themselves in the ritual to be about, because they need the demonic energy as a means to even know what to do. So what we're talking about on one level is interdimensional contact through abortive ritual and satanic ritual, which then creates the backdoor, in a sense, of what I'm saying now in terms of the alien thing really being an agenda to hide something else. And the fact that all of the grays and the reptilians and aliens, when they manifest and shapeshift like that, everybody, in a sense, says the same story. So now, no matter how much of a conformed or uniformed alien species you are, nobody is going to do things the exact same way. Nobody. And when they do, that's something else at play and not what you think it is. So essentially what I'm saying is that what I think is going on, or I'm doing it now to what's really going on, is the fact that the reptilian so-called agenda is really about exercising and emphasizing. Sorry, guys. Is going back into the cipher to basically create a situation where, okay, the reptilians want to do this and the reptilians want to do that. But in the end, sending this vibe to the end, it creates another portal for them to put another agenda through. So if I want to cover my tracks, meaning that if the government wants to cover its tracks from all of this alien so-called abduction shit that's going on, or their role that's complicit in it, what they may do, if they want people to believe that they are more powerful than what they are, which is what Satan always wants people to do and think that it is, what they began to do then is when they go into the mind control thing, they basically tell the subject that they're controlling through imagery, through post-hypnotic suggestion, through trauma, through whatever they need to emboss in the psyche, that the person that's torturing the subject is not a human being. That person is a reptilian or a gray. So now what happens is when the person basically breaks away from the programming or gets in a situation where they can start to think for themselves, start to piece together what happens to them, when they start to focus in and localize their mind's eye on the face or image or visage or effigy of the so-called people who are abusing them and ritualistically torturing them, what comes up in their mind is not an image of a white guy in or a government person in a white lab coat, you know what I'm saying, torturing them and doing what they're doing to them, or a soldier or whatever. What comes up in their mind is what they programmed to see, what they've been made to see, which is a so-called reptilian or a so-called gray. You mean to tell me as many times as we've been around different Caucasian people or whoever people who want to act like they're reptilians and this, and that, you mean to tell me that there's never been an instance or never been an instance with one of these dudes where one of our sisters or whatever, or or you may have been on a team with a guy who may have been a reptilian or some shit, and then what he decided to do, you get cut, and then what? He just looks at the cut and is not able to shape shift. The way that you hear these people talk about it, they can't control themselves at all around blood. So if that's the case, there should be some type of other corroborating evidence to show and prove the reptilian aspect as a true, indeed, phenomenon. What I believe, or what I'm doing in knowledge to it, is that you get the opposite. So when I say reptilian now, or when we say reptilian now, we should start to do the knowledge to make the delineation between what we mean when we say that. We're not talking about the people on V. We're not talking about the people in the Enemy Mind movie. We're talking about the reptilian section of the brain that is so worked over that the reptilian section of the brain becomes the center of the subject who is under the mind control of that essence. That becomes the highest functionality of their brain system. So to explain it even simpler, the reptilian section of the brain starts to function the way the prefrontal lobe begins to function in the mind of the subject. Meaning that the subject, the person who's being abused and put through the system, is basically in the system functioning from the perspective of the reptilian brain as the higher functionary of the brain itself, which is not real then. So really we're not talking about a reptilian people, we're talking about the reptilian section of the brain that's been exploited through trauma and mind control stuff enough for it to be used as the means to fool the greater senses of the body. So as much as Charles and the Queen Elizabeth and all these people are aliens or in concert with aliens, I think the aliens that they're talking about are actually demonic entities that manifest through a so-called traumatic-based experience that is imbued and embossed in the psyche of the person that is being abused and then is brought about from a higher function. And that's the problem. And that's the problem, you know what I'm saying? So we can't really feel or look. You don't know what a charger is, huh? You know what I'm saying? So that's one essence. So that means that the whole, close encounters of the third kind and, the aliens are coming and all of this fake alien agenda thing that they've been working to put forth in the mainstream media is just for me. It's just another means to perpetuate the idea that they are something that they aren't. We must always remember that the enemy or the adversary is a liar, and nothing that the adversary do can ever be construed as truth. Even when he's speaking the truth, it's going to be in a forked way. So we need to really do the knowledge to this and start entertaining aspects of this knowledge that really just don't make any more sense anymore. So because, like I said, they're doing things to cover their tracks, they basically create altars and what they call false altars, which are ways to basically make people think the opposite. So just in case the programming starts to break down, the subject doesn't go and point the finger at who needs the finger pointed at them, which is the government, whether they are in concert with these non-physical entities or not. So if I program this person to feed me, so if I program this person that when they see these devils put on these robes, that and after they drink the blood that they be turned into these alien people, whether they turn into these things or not is irrelevant. The point is the person who I want to believe that they do that believes and sees them do that. So to me and you, if we were sitting there, we would just look like some crazy white folk just ripping each other apart, eating each other and shit or whatever. But to this person, she see them as reptilian entities. Now, the other aspect of that we're dealing with is the whole shape-shifting thing. Now, we, especially the indigenous, aboriginal, original Washita, Big Buffalo peoples of North Central South America, we have a long history of being able to shape-shift into different totemic animals. Like there are many legends amongst the Lakota, the Hopi, the Panahasawa, the Kitwa, the Wabanaki, the so-called Iroquois, as well as the Greater Washita. There are stories about the coyote. The coyote has the same attributes that Anansi, the spider, would have, which is the mischievous element. If you don't know knowledge of yourself, you can be tricked. So it's the same thing with the coyote and what he represented in terms of the shape-shifting animal and how we as individuals would be able to tap into that totemic energy and be able to, tap into the senses and the greater energy of that animal spirit. So within that, what we're also saying is that we created a society called the Kitwa Society. You can do the nods to it online or whatever. And a lot of, maybe some elders from the old Moorish paradigm might remember or still do the nods to it. Another name for the Kitwa Society was the Fourth Faith Society, in which we would create the mask that we would use eventually for the totem and the totem poles and stuff like that, and then use all of that energy congruently to bring the what they call the old one or the spiritual ancestors back into the fold of the society. So we would put on these plays and festivals and everything. It was like carnival. It was like carnival or whatever. What? Oh my God. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just dealing with some real life shit. Sorry, guys. Why did you put it in the tub? I can't have it. Well, you have to stop that.
That's the second time that I saw it snap. Just put his shoes in there, and I trained it for that thing with his shoes.
I'm going to stop doing things for attention, buddy. Okay? Can you stop that? Stop giving mommy such a hard time, all right? Help me out, bro. So, sorry, guys. Getting back to it. Son has a new thing of pulling all of the towels into the tub with him. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, in getting back to what we were saying, though, all of this energy is basically coming from this point. And a lot of that residual stuff is being misinterpreted and put in situations where we're not really looking at things the way they are. We're kind of looking at world history and stuff how we want it to be, and a lot of the adversaries' movements and stuff based on what we have come to know the adversaries to be through the people we have come to know who speak about this beast. So all of the so-called guys that's in the so-called white patriot, truther, or whatever movement, who is at the head of that stuff, all of those guys is under the mind control of somebody else. Specifically speaking about the David Icke thing, we all know, like I said, he's an MI5, disinformation agent. But more than that, I'm just using him as a reference because, black folks really get into his stuff. Also, for street vendors, you should watch out because anybody selling Alex Jones stuff, Michael Tsarian stuff, David Icke stuff, all of the so-called white guys and the trooper stuff or whatever, all of that stuff is copyright under federal auspices. Therefore, if you found selling that on the street, they'll try to lock you up for that. So just a jewel for those people who, like selling their stuff. Everything that David Icke builds on, he basically got in terms of the reptilian stuff. Good. As far as the reptilian stuff, he's the one who got into that. And all that reptilian stuff comes from a guy who is, I guess, his handler, a guy named Brian Despero. This guy, Brian Despero, along with the theosophic energy from a guy named from a woman named Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey was connected to the Theosophic. Alice Bailey was connected to the Theosophic Society, and she was a so-called person who was a proponent of what we would today call eugenics. But back then, she was dealing with stuff, kind of inheriting what Blavatsky put out there. She was reinterpreting a lot of the old Blavatsky stuff. But we know that Blavatsky, just like Annie Besant and the rest of them, through the so-called secret the Theosophic Society, were all basically worshippers of the beast. But this guy in particular, Brian Despereaux, was basically the guy in which he's the guy who introduced Ike to the woman I referred to as Arizona Wilder, who is the so-called mother goddess in the ritual. I don't have to go and step over the house. Give me a break to stop, okay? So the thing is, Alex Bailey basically took a lot of notes from that Pascal Beverly Randolph, peace be upon him, wrote on the Aeth. The Aeth, A-E-T-H, is another way of saying Aether, A-E-T-H-Y-R, the Aether or ether, that a lot of the high spirits or so-called ancestors exist in. So, show you how deep this chick is. This is a quote. This is a direct quote from this book that she wrote called Preparations Until 2025. She wrote that the New World Order must be appropriate to a world which has passed through the destructive crisis and to a humanity which is badly shattered and scarred by the experience. The New World Order must lay the foundation for a future world order which will be possible only after a time of recovery, of reconstruction and rebuilding, a.k.a. utopia. So essentially what she's saying, you know what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that what we perceive as the New World Order is not it at all. What we perceive as the New World Order is basically some futuristic society in which everybody is under a police state and police law. No, that's not what the New World Order is to the people who are practicing this dogma and this nonsense. The New World Order to them is the world that is totally destroyed, that is totally desolate and devoid of all life other than the shattered, broken, traumatized remnants of whatever humans survived all of the Holocaust and ultimate destruction that they seek to work on the planet. So the New World Order starts after everything is gone. So this, what we're in right now, is not it. We are in the time that this chick referred to as the destructive crisis. You understand? This book, The Preparations Until 2025, became the basis of eugenics operations ever since that date. They created the situation as a means to glorify desolation. So last couple shows ago, I talked about the Thomas Cole painting series that he referred to called The Course of Empire. And that is all based on, like I said, the NWO manifesting how they and what they want this utopia to be and who they want to base it on. This is why the Katy Perry video is so next level to them. It has to be the most played song in history, according to Billboard and the rest of the liars in the music industry, because the agenda in that story is manifesting what it is they know they want this thing to be. So don't think that these people who become politicians or whatever else are going to be politicians or whatever they're supposed to be are there to help and stop war. They are there to bring as many wars as possible. This is why your man can get the Nobel Peace Prize at the same time he commits 375,000 people to war in Afghanistan. To do what? To build a pipeline that goes through Afghanistan into what is the sovereign nation of Pakistan for now, and then use that to go forth into the Indian Ocean to help further destabilize the whole thing. So ultimately, the whole nuclear war thing that kind of went away during the 90s is even that much more prevalent potential reality for these people in their society now, because this is a quick way for them to get the ultimate desolation that they want, which is why all of these post-apocalyptic movies usually are post-apocalyptic, meaning that they usually take place after everything is gone, and there's always some type of dystopian, utopian, Stygian type of futuristic technocracy that basically is functioning but is treating everybody as a slave. That's because whatever society will be that they create from that will be their New World Order society that is totally satanic. So to help safeguard this, being that the demons, the malefic entities from lower or higher dimensions seek to incarnate and incorporate themselves here through this agenda, then that means to protect the demons, we have to make the people believe that the demons are aliens. But when you read, there's a book called The Secret to Alien Abduction. I forget the author, but I believe, I forget what page it's on, but in the book, they basically say that that in a percentage rate, they said 85 out of 100 of these Caucasian people that talk about that they've been abducted not only share the same story, but all talk about how one of the things that they noticed about the aliens was how much they stunk. And when they asked what they smelled like, if they smelled like manure, they was like, no, they smell like sulfur. Now, you know that sulfur is a byproduct of that so-called hellish energy, whether you know or you don't know it is. Sulfur is evidence of sulfuric acid, which is allegedly the base. Methane and sulfur is allegedly the basis of the demonic realm that these so-called grays incarnate through. So the very process of creating the fictitious culprit of the ritual sacrifice or trauma-based programming, when that person begins to believe that the people doing this to them is the gray alien or is a so-called reptilian, then what happens is that person then becomes inhabited and under the control or demonically possessed by this demon that is posing as an alien, that is put there by people, human beings, posing as reptilians. It's all a scam. None of that shit is real the way that they put in it. For instance, it was Brian Desborough that introduced the guy, David Icke, to the subject of Arizona Wilder, who corroborated his story. So the guy that's editing your book introduces you to the chick who wasn't in your book up until you decided that this would be good to put in Ike's book, and then Ike agreed, and then that's what it was. But again, everything that Ike is talking about is coming from Alice Bailey. But it ain't just him. It's Crowley, Manly P. Hall, Jacques Fresco, Eckhart Tolle, Peter Joseph, Alex Jones, Jesse Ventura, all of these guys. If there was such a thing, like I said, as these so-called white reptilians, and they had all of this power in the world, why would these people hide it? Since when you know the cracker to do anything that puts him in a position of power that he don't fully try to exert over everybody else around him? But again, this is the problem with modern, like I said, esoteric things, arcane things, occult things, because it's a very slippery slope between that and being and allowing yourself to become possessed by malefic entities. Now, these entities are not necessarily physical or non-physical like that, meaning that they basically can only be accessed in us as original people based upon our own feelings of inadequacy and us getting rid of one of the only protections that sentient beings have against demonic possession, and that is dark plasma, a.k.a. melanin, because melanin absorbs the sunlight. These demons do not deal with solar energy the way that we deal with it. They can't incarnate it the same way that you can here. Because this is, when you incarnate to third density, you are incarnating into an imperfect place, yet the imperfection of this place is what propels it and drives one towards perfection. But along the way, the earth is still a beautiful place. These things are coming from a higher dimension, but they do not have a higher consciousness. So because they're non-physical, their consciousness is not on the same level as their non-physicalness. Therefore, they can only feel fully expressed in a lower form of physical expression, which then is third density. Whereas with us, it's the opposite. We're coming from a higher density, but we come down to the lower density to incarnate, learn what it is, to house all of the abstractions that make us what we are, and then take this physical experience and transmute it into a physical, non-physical experience and take it back to what we would consider the God mind. That's the point. Yet, in the meantime, these people have muddled away so much and created so much confusion and so much idle chit-chat about shit that's not real. So, here go another quote from this person. This is from a chick named Barbara Marx Hubbard. So she's related to Marx, Karl Marx, on the mother side of the family, and then on the father side of the family, on the mother side of the family is Marx. But she's she's the daughter of L. Ron Hubbard, the Scientologist, Satanist, theosophic person who, again, studied under Crowley, Alice Bailey, and all these other people who are promoting this agenda. This is a quote from a book that she wrote. And the quote says, out of the full spectrum of human personality, 1/4 is electing to transcend. 1/4 is resistant to election. They are unattracted by life ever evolving. Now, as we approach the quantum shift from creature human, talking about them, to co-creative human, Freemasonic human, the destructive 1/4 must be eliminated from the social body. Fortunately for you, dear beloved, you are not responsible for this act. We are. We are in charge of God's selection process for Earth. He selects, we destroy. We are the riders of the pale horse of death. This is the founder of the New Age movement, one of the founders in the shit, saying that she's reminiscent of the pale horse of death. So when we talk about the New Age movement, we're talking about the mass possession, the mass demonic possession of Caucasian people, black people, white people, under the auspices of alien abduction. Remember, the devil is always a liar. Everything that these niggas say is not real. Therefore, anything that they purport to be able to do is actually the opposite of what they're capable of. This is why, again, they need to emboss the psyche through, like I said, let's say the Katy Perry video. It's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You have the non-physical, alien, demonic hybrid who, once she incarnates to Earth, incarnates with the legs of a goat or legs of Baphomet. But she incarnates down there to reawaken the albino, meaning black man with no knowledge of self and no visible melanin in him, who is locked away in an artificial program, to reinstitute him so that way they both can be the Adam and Eve of the new utopia that is the new world. So this is symbolic of how they are looking to create this desolation to be able to lay the foundation of the so-called New World Order is. So what we're basically saying is that the ultimate destruction of Western civilization is what Western civilization wants for itself, because that will be the only way it can move into a different sphere in which it will be able to implement some of its greater plans. So this is what is referred to in that so-called Transangothian magic as the Satanic Trinity, which is the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. So the dragon is the anti-God, the beast is the antichrist, and the false prophet is the anti-spirit. And these three work in congruence together to bring about what they refer to as the Black Awakening. This is something that the practicing Satanists on the low, the open practicing Satanists or out in the open, the ones in Hollywood, this is what they all are moving everything for, to basically be able to come out and allow their mystery demonic entity god, which is the Legion that we'll refer to as whatever, Mephistopheles, Asmodeus, whatever demonic thing they want to call it, Lucifer or whatever, this is their means to be able to create the world in which people will think that they're worshiping God, but in reality they're worshiping the version of God that is beset by these demons. And so the alien thing, like I said, is just a cover that they have been using to hide a lot of these orbs and shit that is traveling back and forth through that. But coupled with all of that energy now, through what they want in terms of the Black Awakening, the Black Awakening under the Nazi Party was referred to as the final solution. So this is why you have so many occultists and esoteric people and people when, like, think about it. When you get knowledge yourself, a lot of us came out of the Christian paradigm. You get knowledge yourself, and then you start moving up. You know that Christianity is bullshit or whatever, but based on that, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You think that the whole concept of Yehoshua or Jesus is bullshit, too. And that's what they want you to do. See, certain names and invocations have certain power that works over certain low-dimensional frequencies. When you deal with exorcism and shit like that, whether you believe in Jesus or not as God, the name Jesus can be used as a means to rebuke the entity that is possessing whatever subject is being inhabited by them. Why? Because there's something about the resonance of that name Jesus that functions and puts a lot of these demons in place. Which is why when you see exorcist movies, it's not about the cross and the fact that Jesus was on the cross that is pushing this entity aside. It has nothing to do with that. It's the full knowledge and capability of this binding word sound power that it has over entities that are seeking to usurp that. So when you read the Bible, this is why Noble Jew Ali said, Moors, do not throw your Bibles away because you're going to have need for them in the end times. This is why would Noble Jew Ali, a person who was a so-called Islamic or Moor, why would he put Jesus in the Moorish Quran?
That's what I asked. That's right. Why would he do that?
If it didn't mean nothing, or if it was just as wicked and evil as everybody else. Think about it. Jesus, Yehoshua, was not a Christian. So to lump him in the trick bag with the Christians is to disrespect the very person who came to do away with that shit. Now, again, I'm not telling everybody to go and be a Christian or whatever. I'm just saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if you can invoke, why is it that we can invoke Asar, Heru, Aset, Sekhmet, the devils be doing Baphomet, they be invoking all types of entities. Zoroaster or Ahura Mazda, you see these white people, they be acting like they be channeling people from different dimensions and all stuff. Why is it everybody can do all of that but Jesus? Why is it that you could talk to all of them entities and people except Jesus? There's a reason. And to tell you the truth, I'm still figuring it out. But again, I'm bringing it to the family because I want the family to do the knowledge that there's more to all of this shit than what we're really doing the knowledge to. And the more we're doing the knowledge to it, the more you got to really do and look at what's in front of your face and not how you want to see it. Like I was saying and then this also ties into the whole Moorish thing. In the sense that if you are Moor and you are using the Treaty of Peace and Friendship as the means to declare your indigenous aboriginal sovereignty over the landmass of North, Central, and South America, you're committing fraud, international fraud, because they're using an international document that's supposed to represent you domestically. Yet, this is not to say that you don't have descendancy from those Moors from the Kingdom of Morocco. It's just to say that those Moors who set up the Kingdom of Morocco set that up after the expulsion of the Moors in 1493, after which it pushed all of those Moors further down into the interior of what we today call North Africa. They set up what's called the United States of Barbary in the sense of Morocco, Tunis, Tripolitania, and Libya, which was Punt at the time. And they basically ushered in 500 years of piracy. And during the process of that, they were not only taking, those Moors of that dominion were not only taking over Caucasians and enslaving them, they was also enslaving other Moors from other dominions that didn't want to necessarily help them put themselves back in power in Spain. This is why they started using these Caucasian Christian slaves that they would put into the dungeon pits, in the slave pits of Saleh, in what is now Al-Maghrebia, which is now Morocco. So if you want to claim Moorish descent and dominion as a member of the imperial Moroccan or Moorish dominions in America, and then using the Peace and Treaty of Friendship, whether using the one from 1786 that say Muslim or the one that came after in 1787 that used the word Moor for Muslim, it's still the same issue. You're using a foreign document that says that you are under the jurisdiction of a sovereign king, which means that you are not sovereign in the traditional sense. It means that you are a sovereign subject. And it also means that you're supposed to be paying tribute to the Emperor of Morocco. If they ain't got no tribute from you, then that means that you're not doing it how you're supposed to do it. The only indigenous Moors that can truly claim that indigenously he as the oldest nation in the world is the Washita. They're the only ones. You can claim and use the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and all of that, but that would describe you as a denizen. You understand? That's a denizen thing. That doesn't make you a natural inhabitant of this place, because remember, we are the ones that let our European cousins come over here with their slaves and set up a business. The landlords of the land of us at that time was us as the Washita under the so-called, what we would call Monarchan Confederacy, that was made up of the 13 zone, 48 tribes that all congruently got together at the longhouses that belonged to the so-called Iroquois. So the Iroquois Confederacy, the Continental Congress, all of these things are the same thing, because history uses them both interchangeably. You can get a book called Secret Destiny of America by Hieronymus, and it'll tell you that the person that they refer to as Benjamin Franklin based the whole concept of concept of that on what he saw the Iroquois doing. But how could that be if that was at the time that they were all, how could they form a government if they were all under the jurisdiction of a foreign king? And how is it that if this person, Benjamin Franklin, existed, how is it that all of the exploits of him and all of the exploits of Benjamin Banneker Bay all basically add up to the same thing? Because there was no such person as Benjamin Franklin in history. That is a person, was some Freemason that they basically used to occupy what Benjamin Bay did. And there's historical references where you can corroborate all this, but instead of me giving it to you, I want you to go and do the knowledge to it for yourself. How you going to claim Aboriginal descent and you are basically, the document that you use and says that you're from somewhere else? And then you wonder why we be getting our ass kicked in these courtrooms and don't have no property and get everything we foreclosed on when you rescind all this shit. That's the other thing. How can you rescind the birth certificate, the passport, the Social Security card, all the other identification if you did not create it? How can you get rid of something you didn't create that allegedly was created for you to interface with them? So let's say you get rid of it, and then so now what? The one artificial means that could act as a buffer to keep these people up off of you, you by your own mouth has gotten rid of it, which then means that now you have no protection, no artifice or flag or any of that to go into, because to keep it real, unless you're doing the Washita thing, and even then there's problems with that because of so many other so-called denizen-type Moors or Moors associated with different types of temples that don't necessarily have the greater body politic in mind with everybody else. So you just talk about, how ancient the black woman is in the garden, all of this. The Empress herself, again, a direct descendant and all of that. I don't be hearing niggas talk about her at all. She's alive. She made Bush. You talk about people who doing shit, she made Bush. I got a copy of the letter that she made him get them white people up off the land. They still own it now. But based on the fact we have no enforcement because we have all of these temples that's out here, and everybody think they functioning and carrying on the work of Noble Drew Ali, and Noble Drew Ali, everything he did, he really did with no paperwork. They got us on a spell. They got you under a spell. They got you thinking that when you read about history, you're only reading about one person at a time. Why is it whenever we read about Noble Drew Ali, we read about him, then we read about Markin, then we read about Marcus, then we read about Deuce Muhammad, then we'll read about Elijah, then we'll read about Fard, and we deal with each one of these people as if they existed in history by themselves alone and never interacted with anybody else. Because that's how they teach history to conquered people. They teach it linearly. So the selection process right now is definitely to the next level, you know what I'm saying, in terms of who's getting it and who's not. So when we deal with things like sleep paralysis, right, hypnagogic sleep, meaning that you wake up but then you can't move when you sleep, all of that is a form of possession. All of that means that something is inhibiting the space in between you getting back in the body, and then your conscious soul works to fight off whatever demonic entity is doing it. Now remember, the demons themselves are not necessarily what you see in TV and all of that. The demons themselves manifest out of you, manifesting out of the part of yourself that you don't keep it real with yourself that you really are. All of the stuff that you lie to yourself about grows into a demon, and that demon reaches out to other entities to help keep its body, its host, in check. This is why, like, you'll stop dealing with a hater, and then you'll hear later that your hater met another old hater of yours. And then what will eventually happen is that all your haters basically know each other. And what keeps them in relationships is that they can get in relationships, and the demons in them can feed off of the demon that is exercised out of you. So then they all commiserate and get together in the misery love company because the demons that are in there are reminiscing on what it was to really be in a pure vessel. Any occultist that has ever proclaimed himself to be the devil has gone down the road of destruction. Because all the devil can give you is nothing, and that's why people love him. So when you wake up, so in situations where you're waking up, hypnagogic sleep can also be when you're waking up, but then you're still asleep. You know what I mean? Most people who experience that have had some type of contact with some type of occult, whether when they were children or whatever. Because, see, these entities are not even satanic. Remember, there's no such thing as satanic. I just use that as a means to delineate the difference between the type of dark stuff that we deal with in terms of voodoo, Palo, Santisimo Muerte, or whatever else somebody's dealing with, dark plasma synthesis or whatever they're dealing with. Sect, worship, cassette is the real. Satan is the fake. Yet Satan is what runs Western civilization. And in secret, they worship sex. You know what I'm saying? So it goes both ways. So, again, if you hear anybody come and tell you how they from the Pleiades and they challenge people from the Pleiades, they lying to you. The Pleiades, how can they channel energy from the Pleiades when the Pleiades system is way younger than the one that we in now? The Pleiades system is so young they don't even have no real life in there yet. That's why they refer to the Pleiades as the 7 virgin sisters. Virgin meaning that that there is no so-called life in it yet. It hasn't been the cherry hasn't been popped for mitochondrial DNA to start to react there yet. So again, this is how it's working. You know what I mean? So when you read books on the occult by Crowley, about Blavatsky, and the rest of these liars, and they talk about the secret chiefs, the original secret chiefs that she was talking about was Randolph and them. Randolph and the black magicians like Prince and Princess Mysteria and Boom Sky and Black Herman and a lot of these so-called occultists that were black people that was keeping these white occultists at bay for years and we don't know nothing about. And that's our fault. Whether they hid the knowledge or not is regardless. The vibratory frequency that we have calls out for like-minded individuals to access. So if I can find out about it, everybody can find out. You know? So the secret chiefs originally, like I said, were the Moors, but then eventually that switched. She switched the term secret chiefs for the term ascended masters. The ascended masters, in actuality, were the Freemasons who was funding her through the Theosophic Society. So even though, let's say, reptilian shapeshifting, meaning coming from the reptilian section of the brain, it shuts down the prefrontal lobe, which means that your higher reason and functioning is only functioning from the higher aspect of the reptilian brain. What then happens is that the real brain starts to go through a form of atrophy because you're not really in your real self. You're not in your real throne. You're sitting in the throne, in a lower throne. You understand? So when it comes to things like demonic possession, though, shape-shifting or aspects of that, to me, may be more prevalent or may be more realistic to believe because you're not dealing, the shifting that you're seeing is not necessarily a physical shifting. It manifests physically, but what you're seeing is something spiritual, something from a psychic reality that is using the physical material to create an archetype of that will emboss fear on the person to keep their host loyal to them. You understand? So, like I said, ritual-based group psychosis, demonic, the government using aliens as a means to hide demonic possession. Because remember I said all satanic ritual abuse stuff comes out of the Pentagon. The Pentagon is responsible for running that because the safe of the Pentagon is what would be the inside of a five-pointed star. So when I say Satanism doesn't exist, it doesn't because it's a bastardized version of what we was dealing in terms of pre-dynastic worship of Set. Yet Set was not an evil deity at the time that the ancient Kemites was dealing with that energy. You're talking about a vibration because the pre-dynastic Set is the post-dynastic Osar. And both of them combined create Heru. So, or the essence of Heru. Because Heru had to learn from both his father and he had to learn from his uncle. Good night, buddy. Good night, man. So again, when we talk about the false faith society of our ancient ancestors at Tamuantan, you know what I mean, that's something different. You know what I mean? Totemic shape-shifting is different than so-called reptilian or actualized shape-shifting, how they put it forth in TV. Another reason why they like to promote that people are reptilians on the inside is because they don't want people to trust what they feel naturally inside of them. They want you to be at war against yourself. So they want you to believe that you can potentially be inhabited or are not who and what you say or think you are. It's to destabilize and do away with the archetype of the Creator. It said in Revelation when Jesus comes back, he would manifest as a body, and the body of Christ would manifest.
Peace.
Okay.
Good night, Nemo.
Oh, his uncle's on it. Yeah. Good night, bud.
Bye.
Peace. So, again, people who have claimed to be around these entities or these demons or whatever, these people, you know, it's all a scam. So like I said, even with the Moorish thing, we need to start to really do the knowledge for that this is why a lot of people be getting jammed up. Because what I think a lot of brothers that are pushing the information and paperwork in the groups and all that, a lot of them I think are in earnest, are really doing it because this is what they feel that it's supposed to be. Yet again, Noble Jali did everything he did with really no paperwork at all. So we got to understand that the movement itself went through a drastic change between 1988 and 1998. That's when all the UCC and all of the Patriot stuff, through the affiliations that certain Moors who were Masons affiliated themselves with certain Patriots who were Masons, and as Masonic brothers, they agreed to share information, but the knowledge that the Patriots was using was bastardized knowledge of the Moorish science that their forefathers had taken to create the whole fictitious Sons of Liberty and all that other stuff that these dudes is in. The basis, the root, the basis, a lot of the people who helped fund what today we call the Tea Party came out of another organization that's shrouded in mystery called the Moorish Orthodox Church. The dude Dick Armey, who helped set up the Tea Party, as well as a couple of other people, all used to go and do shrooms and all that shit up there in the Pine Barrens. There's books on this shit. And allegedly that land was purchased in the late 60s, early 70s by a guy named Wally Fard. Whether it's the original Wally Fard or Wally Dodd or Wallace Fard or Wallace Ford or whatever, whenever there's a bunch of different people claiming to be the same dude, you know there's some type of government, some type of demonic, some type of mind control thing to throw you off and take you away and out of the kingdom of God. Who said that you're not in the kingdom of God right now? God meaning generator, operator, destroyer. Who said that you're not in that now? Man says that you're not. Man says that there has to be a place in which heaven begins and earth ends. Man is the one dealing with the limitations. God is the one giving everybody water for free in the form of rain. He's giving everybody food for free in the form of vegetables and fruit and everything. Man is the one who comes, mankind is the one who comes and put a price tag on all that shit. So we got to start working with what matters and getting away from the stuff that's getting us jammed up. If we keep using the same tactics to get there, and you keep hearing about all of this stuff about being able to get your treasury hooked up and all of that. And again, this is coming from somebody who did filing, who was one of the first people filed, me and the Queen. And we filed other people, too. But at the time we did it, the state was not in the state that it was now. And when you read the wording and how we hooked our shit up, we were basically already talking about what we were talking about this then. But then that same paperwork was placed online by the Department of State as a means to get everybody jammed up. And everybody started copying aspects, not everybody, but a lot of people started taking aspects, cutting and pasting parts and stuff what we were saying and creating their own documents, and now it's a big confusion thing. And it's really simple. The simplicity is we already have a nation already set up and already recognized. The Washington Empire is more of a nation than the United States. The United States is an NGO right now. Yet, the enforcement capability and the fact that you still have these rogue Moors, and when I say Moors, I'm also talking about black people from different groups who castigate Moorish science and go in on it and not really try to find out what the problem is. Don't just shit on the situation because you may have had a negative experience. Look to see what was in that situation that you could have done better, and then maybe you could figure out how to safeguard it from somebody else going through it. So if everybody else got their own version of the paperwork, how can then we can consider ourselves a nation? We are not a nation. Let's stop lying to ourselves. We're barely a community. What we can say, or what I can say we are, to me, are people who are willing to listen right now. And that's good. That's a start. You know what I'm saying? Let's start with that. But let's not try to create and put ourselves in positions that we haven't really graduated to yet, is what I'm saying. So there is no Nordic, Aryan, Nazis from the Guru that's coming to basically get all the white people together. There are no Pleiadians, and Pleiades is too young a star system to support life anyway. You see what I'm saying? So that's not true. All of the Zechariah Sitchin shit about the Anunnaki and the this one and the people who inhabit the Guru, all of that's BS. Anunnaki is really a put-together word of two words, Anu and Naki. Anu meaning the Anu people, and Naki meaning black, because the first emperor of the Xiang dynasty in China, his name was Naki, and he is a jet black Dravidian. Moor. But again, I use the term Moor to describe original people. So please don't get offended. That's just how it's a universal term for me that applies to everybody, because really what I've done in knowledge too is that the Moors were the princes of the so-called African races. That's what made them Moor. The princes and the kings and the queens and the dukes and the counts and the beys and the days and the L's and all that stuff. El being short for Elohim. So, what else can we get into? I'm trying to cram a lot of it in because we started a little late. Thank you, everybody, for holding Queen down and going in with her. A lot of the wars that are being fought right now, too, are being fought about who's going to go into the inner earth. Right now, I'm going to post it on my Facebook page and the profile page so you can see it. But I just got some satellite footage of a black hole that is exactly over the Arctic Circle right now. And it's been getting bigger and bigger ever since, to the point that it's affecting weather patterns, everything. And it's over the Western Hemisphere. This is a real thing. This, coupled with the South Atlantic anomaly and some of the other things that are happening, are the physical, supernatural changes that our planet is going through. Another lie another misconstrued concept is that of the morphogenetic grid. Now, I did a tape called Morphogenetic Theology. But when I say morphogenetic, I'm referring to it as more as MORPHOGENETIC, morphogenetic. The morphogenetic grid, MORPHOGENEtic, that these Europeans and these people talk about, they're talking about what they refer to as ley lines, meaning intersecting lines that travel from one monument ritual site to the other. Now, the first morphogenetic grid that I'm talking about exists. The second one does not. The first one exists in the fact that we are Moors who have photons within our DNA genetically. Therefore, the ley line or the morphogenetic grid is the non-physical or psychic communication that takes place between Moors within different areas of the world or geographic location. So this is why I can think about somebody and then 10 minutes later they give me a call, because I used my part of the morphogenetic grid, me, to reach out psychically to your part of the morphogenetic grid, which is you, and the thought that travels that is non-physical, meaning that there's no line on the earth that is going to channel that to this person who I thought about, who called me back because they know I thought about them. Therefore, the morphogenetic grid that really exists is the non-physical one that exists within us as physical archetypes of the grid based on our consciousness. We are the lights that people see, that the high ancestors see when they're looking down on this planet from what we would consider space and all of that. They don't see the street lights and all of that. The street lights that you see and all of that is the game, again, the illusion created to thwart the real divine morphogenetic grid light that comes out of each one of us as Moors who are genetically photonic light. So to say that Stonehenge and obelisks and stuff like that basically were built on these ancient ley lines, and through these ley lines they were able to reconnect and connect to other people on the other side of the world, hypothesize that. That would then mean that if you cut down an obelisk from Egypt and brought it to, let's say, Central Park, that means that there needed to be an obelisk in Central Park for you to then take back to Egypt to make the whole connection really work in reverse. How are you going to take the obelisk from one point in the world, bring it over here, and then put out the lie that there's an energy field between all of these different things, but then there's no energy field to replace the one that you took? That shows you they bold-faced lying in that. You understand? And I've seen glyphs and documents and all that on that, but to really, really go in on it, I think it's the opposite. And all of this is connected to these wars in which them trying to get into the inner earth. Because the inner earth thing, you have to understand that all the pollution that exists on the surface of the planet, on the inside of the planet, that pollution is not there like that. Oxygen on our planet goes at least maybe 2 miles above the actual, what we would consider surface of the planet. Anything above that, as you get higher, you start to lose more oxygen because the air is thinner up there, right? On the inside of the Earth, the opposite is actually, you have at least 750 to 2,000 miles of free oxygen, unpolluted oxygen, with a magmatic sun. The way that they tell you that the Earth core is all rock in the middle, and then you got the magma core, and it spins or whatever, and then it creates tectonic plates on the outside, and then they move all that. All of that is cool if you are of the opinion that planet Earth is a globe. Earth is not a globe. The Earth is not round. It's circular. The Earth is a sphere. And a sphere goes through situations where it goes through different internal changes to accommodate what is inside of it. So there's something that they refer to as the concave Earth theory, in which they are saying that it is possible for those people in the inner Earth, because it's so lush and tropical and all of that, because the air is so abundant in that, it's possible for them to be able to travel into space without traveling outside into what we would consider the surface world. They could just travel from on the inside of the planet and then be in space somewhere. Whether or not they can do that or not is irrelevant. What I do know, though, is that the governments of the world, these wars that are being fought in Afghanistan, in Tibet, in certain places, are being fought over who is going to try to go up in there and really rule. Because you have a lot of entities on the inside of the planet that exist there that are moving and kicking and shutting down a lot of these bases that these people are trying to set up. So again, in a situation where you have at least 750 to 2,000 miles of breathable oxygen, pure oxygen, that promotes a form of giantism. You understand? Because that's so much pure air in, the body has to physically accommodate itself to be able to retain all of that purity, to retain that purity. So you can't do that with a physical density that we have on the outside surface of the planet. It would have to be iller. And remember, we're talking about a place with no sunlight. But the sun that exists is a magmatic sun. But so imagine a world where it's always twilight, where it's always kind of like dusk. Is how it is. And then imagine the water there. So what that also means is that the planet Earth itself has two different oceans. There's only one ocean on the planet. White man break it up into Arctic, Pacific, Atlantic, this one. All of that is the ocean. So there's only one ocean on the planet, okay? Yet, with this new understanding means that the water that exists on the outside of the planet coats both the top of the mantle and under the mantle. And then there's the mantle, and then under that mantle is the water that exists on the inside of the planet. Water that has totally different types of marine life in it because it doesn't have the same limited amount of oxygen. And also there's no moon or sunlight to reflect, so you don't know what's down. So it's possible for nature to create fish and things like that that grow lights and stuff on them for them to be able to even exist down. So it's a lot. This show tonight is just really about just dispelling a lot of the falsehoods and things that we're starting to realize are not really real. I want you to do your own research on it, though, to corroborate or not. Maybe you find evidence to the contrary of what I'm saying. Let me know. I'm just doing it based really on common sense now, and not, again, why or, to just show and prove why we're correct all the time. So another form of possession in the form of what people refer to as modern academia is referring to a thing they refer to in quantum physics called a Dyson sphere. So this concept was created by a guy named Freeman Dyson. And basically what Dyson said was that how would you say, a Dyson sphere is a system of orbiting solar-powered satellites that are meant to completely encompass as a star and capture that will completely encompass a star and capture most or all of the star's energy, yield, and output. Now, if that's not a scientific way of displaying demonic possession, then I don't know what is. Let's break it down. A system, right, man-made, of orbiting solar power, solar deity, sun worship, the worship of Lucifer, the sun in the morning, of satellites, artificial bodies traveling back and forth, these are the demons, that are meant to completely encompass, meaning completely take over the person that they're inhabiting. As a star, Aleister Crowley in their religion said that every man and woman is a star, and capture most, if not all, of the energies, yield, and output, meaning every part of you needs to be possessed by the intent of the entity that's possessing you, in order for it to feel that it has free reign over you and your emotions that can speak through you. Yet, what we perceive sometimes dictates what the reality is, and a lot of times that can be not real based on what we want to see. You know? So,
the class this month is going to be about dream analysis.
Yeah, the class this month. Okay, we're gonna create. We finished the flyer, or whatever, and that's ready to go for this for June's month of classes.
June 7th.
We're going to start June 7th next week, Wednesday, and this is all about dream navigation, dream interpretation, and how to protect yourself astrally as well as physically from the demonic aethers that exist out there. A lot of times, like with readings, this is something that happens. Sometimes you go to a channeler or a healer or a reader to give you a reading, and this reader will read and say something to you that only you spoke to the spirit about, and you accept this person giving you the reading because they're saying something that only you told the spirit in secret. However, you got to realize on the other side in the so-called spirit realm, there are no secrets. No secrets exist in the spirit realm. So that means that when you are talking to your ancestor in the spirit realm through your altar, there are other spirits around that spirit that you're communing with that may be eavesdropping, spiritually ear hustling on what it is you're telling this one, and they may have a malefic agenda against you. And so what they'll do is they'll go into the demon. What they'll do is they'll go into the devil who is giving you the reading, the channeler who's giving you the reading, and commune with that demon to tell you a secret to make you trust yourself, so that way you open yourself up to the possession of the channeler, the person giving you the reading, and the demon that came in to help them do that.
Why you don't get healing?
This is why you don't get healings from people who need healing themselves. This is why you don't read from people who don't like you. This is why you don't eat around people who don't like you. This is why you don't eat people's food who don't like you. Because the same way, me and Selena, and we could be talking here, and then somebody outside my door is the same way that'll happen. So spiritually, we need to create new forms and new paradigms to protect ourselves from these types of malefic entities. And this class is really going to go in on that and show and prove how and why it happens to such a degree. In terms of dream navigation and creating dream places for you to go to in your conscious to protect you. So the same service that these people in Inception was trying to provide, but we're working to provide the family. So anybody interested in that, holler at me at houseofl@hotmail.com, and we'll email you the flyer because, we like dealing with the people directly as opposed to just always posting shit up in modern social media, because I'm seeing that that's really not the vibe. So we're going to hit everybody up in the email list with them anyway, but if you have any interest and you're not in our email list already, please email me and we'll definitely send it to you. So last but not least, we want to say big up and bless the dead to Gil Scott Herring, bless the dead to a woman named LaShawna Threat, who was mysteriously jumped out the window of the W Hotel. She's a video model or whatever. Her friend that played fight she wound up plummeting to her death. So condolences to her and her family and all people. Sean Kingston, let's hope that he gets better. He's another young brother they done put in the game, and they done slipped him into the accident or whatever. So we want to give healing to that. Healing to everybody who needs it. Love and light to everybody who needs it and wants it, whether they need it or want it or not. Also, like I said, anybody wants to holler at us or see some of the more products like last week's class that just ended. Before we class, we have it on our website at www.aseertheduplicator.com. Also, hit me up at superheroradio.com. Also, check out www.sagaassad.com. Big up to them. So with that, peace to everybody. Any questions anybody want to build, email me at houseofl@hotmail.com, and we will see you next Monday. All right, everybody? Peace.